The 1980s had a lot of cool and awesome shoes that were highly desired. If we were lucky, then maybe we had a pair of something that we loved, but that didn't always happen for everyone. Either way, I'm sure that there were probably a lot of other shoes that we liked. In this video, we will take a look back at some of the cool 80s shoes that we all wanted. When you hear the name Brooks today, it may conjure up images of running shoes, but in the 80s they were all about basketball. At least it seemed. Back then there was a phenomenal basketball player with the Atlanta Hawks, and his name was Dominique Wilkins. This is when they were serious contenders. Dominique was not only known for his vicious dunks, but also his shoes that he endorsed, which were Brooks. These were so popular that you could see large sections of these shoes in Montgomery Wards and Sears. If you were not a fan of Dominique and maybe Larry Bird or Magic Johnson was your guy, then you probably donned the Converse Weapons. There were quite a few players that actually wore these shoes in an assortment of colors. When Jordan came out with the Air Jordans, they took the world by storm. He certainly became the biggest basketball player of the decade, and his shoes were something that every kid wanted. The only problem was the shoes were fairly expensive, so not every kid had a pair. They were so highly desired that some kids were being mugged for their shoes. If you couldn't afford these, then there was a little cheaper option. Pony came out with the City Wings, and they came in an assortment of colors. You could have a pair that was very similar to Jordan's. These shoes were worn by none other than the legendary player Spud Webb. That's right, all 5 foot 7 inches of him could wear these shoes, and it seemed like he could really fly. Webb even won the slam dunk contest wearing these shoes. Pony also had a low-top basketball shoe that he wore as well. Now, Pony was into all sorts of shoes, and no matter what the sport was, they had you covered. At one time, they were a really popular shoe, but when is the last time that you ever saw someone wearing a pair of Ponies? If basketball wasn't your thing, then perhaps you listened to rap music, and that's where you got your style. Run DMC rocked the laceless Adidas shoes, but there was another brand that came on strong in the rap genre, and they were called Troop. For most people in America, the first time that they saw the shoe was on LL Cool J's album Bad. At one time, it seemed like every rapper coming out of Oakland, California had a pair of Troops. Kids today just wouldn't know about that. Some shoes seem sort of timeless, like the white Keds shoes for instance. They were popular long before the 80s, but when the movie Dirty Dancing came out, every girl wanted a pair, and they had to be the white ones with the blue label on the back. There were probably more women wearing these in the 1980s than any other time period. They were everywhere. Another shoe that a lot of young women and young girls wanted were the Jellies. Now, these came in an assortment of colors, and they really did look like jelly. People had the actual brand, but there were a lot of knockoffs that looked almost identical. No matter which ones you had, they were extremely uncomfortable. You had to make sure that you had some Band-Aids on hand because these shoes were going to rub some seriously painful blisters on your feet. This was one shoe that was all about fashion and not necessarily comfort. Every once in a while, it seems like these shoes try to come back, but people won't be fooled by them ever again. Reeboks were another popular shoe of the 1980s. They had basketball and tennis shoes, but none were probably as popular as these thanks to aerobics and jazzercise. They were worn by every mom and cheerleader that was out there, but they were also in fashion for any girl. They had the best of both worlds, laces and Velcro. The most popular versions were solid white or solid black, but do you remember the rainbow ones? LA Gear was another popular shoe brand, and these came out in the 1980s in 1983. The brand went public in 1986, and that's when they really took off. You may not have had a pair, but I'm sure that you wanted them. Sales for this shoe became so great that by the early 90s they were third in athletic shoes behind Reebok and Nike. By 1993, the shoe sales began to decline and they eventually landed their way into Walmart in 1995. That did not help the brand and they filed for bankruptcy in 1998. There have been numerous attempts to revive the brand, but they may never be as big as when Karl Malone and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar endorsed them. Reebok Pumps came out at the tail end of the 80s. In fact, it was November of 1989. Dominique Wilkins began appearing in television commercials where he featured this new concept in athletic shoes. Sales quickly took off and people everywhere were wearing them. Older folks did not understand them, but anyone who was younger thought they were the greatest thing ever. In 1991, Dee Brown pumped up his shoes before a national audience during the 1991 Slam Dunk Contest, which he won. Soon other basketball players and celebrities were donning a pair. Over time, the popularity faded, but occasionally they have reappeared as sort of a nostalgic nod in a re-release. One of the wackiest pair of tennis shoes ever made were the KangaROOS, which were also called Roos. And just like the actual kangaroo, these shoes had a little pouch on the side. However, this little Velcro pouch wasn't very big. It wasn't something that you could carry your wallet or keys in. In reality, it was just big enough for a few coins or a folded-up dollar bill. Regardless, these shoes were extremely popular and they were also very fashionable since they had a lot of different color options. The shoe brand is still being sold today, but I haven't seen anyone wearing a pair since the 1980s. Have you? Remember how popular the Avia shoes were in the 80s? They were also a little bit different of a concept in that they had sort of an arcing heel in the bottom of the shoe for an extra bounce. A lot of people wore these as everyday shoes, but they were also popular for playing tennis or going to jazzercise. But one of the most popular styles were the Avia 850s, which everyone wanted for basketball. This was another brand that sort of fell out of style, but there are a few versions that you may still be able to find at Walmart. In the late 80s, it became extremely fashionable to wear dress shoes with denim pants or jeans. The most popular brand was Cole Haan, but if you couldn't afford these, then there were other options such as Eastland. Some people called this style decks, but they were also known as loafers, tassel loafers, or penny loafers. Did you ever have a pair? At one time, Spot-bilt shoes were the go-to brand if you were in football. If you had a pair, then you might remember the little flap that would fold down over your laces. These became extremely popular in the 70s, and even O.J. Simpson was endorsed by them. In fact, the company made him vice president of promotions in 1973 or 1974. This, of course, is long before his infamous Ford Bronco incident of the 1990s. In 1978, the football catalog even featured an image of Simpson on the cover as well as a letter from the Juice on the inside front cover. The popularity of these shoes carried on into the 1980s and they even got into other sports and styles. These shoes were very popular for everyday wear and some kids may have even worn them with their tuxedo to prom. 80s fashion was different and for the most part it was unique. Many of the styles of shoes are no longer made, but some of the brands are. No other shoe has ever hit it as big as Nike has with the Air Jordans. It's funny how that one is still going as strong as ever, and it has outlasted some other NBA players and their shoes. I guess it's a testament to a great shoe and great marketing. What kind of shoes did you wear in the 80s? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching.